Right, good evening everybody and welcome to this Cheltenham Borough Council Licensing Subcommittee which is being held today, which is Wednesday the 7th of August 2024. My name is Councillor Dr David Willingham and I have been elected as Chair of the committee. The meeting is being streamed live to Cheltenham Borough Council's YouTube channel and the recording of the meeting will be held for 4 years. If there are any breaks in the transmission to the YouTube stream, then the meeting will be adjourned for a short period until any technical issues are resolved. There are no public present, but to our applicant, if you are here to make representations to the meeting, you are consenting to the use of the sound and video recordings for broadcasting and training purposes. Please also be aware that CCTV and audio recording is now in operation in the public gallery. The recordings will be held by the council for 5 months. A fire alarm test is not expected, so if the alarm does sound, you should immediately make your way to the nearest exit. And if you have a mobile phone or any other device that makes noise that might interrupt the meeting, could you please put it on silent? If there is an emergency and we do have to evacuate the building at any time, you'll be taken to a relevant exit by a member of staff, and we do have extra security staff and a custodian on duty tonight to assist. And just to say, you may have noticed the extra security at tonight's meeting. This is due to the risk of disruption by what can only be described as mindless, violent thuggery spurred on by hostile foreign actors to undermine our democracy. The first licensing laws were introduced nearly 300 years ago, and as chair of this licensing subcommittee, I do not intend to let our democratic proceedings be thwarted by these criminals. However, the safety of everyone in this hearing must always be my priority. Therefore, if you're asked to move to a different part of the building, to leave the building, or if the building is placed into lockdown, please comply with those instructions, as these are for your personal safety. So I'll move on now to apologies. All members are here, so none have been received. And agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. So myself and Councillor Joy and also our reserve made a site visit this afternoon, so that's just to put that on record. Agenda item 4, which is the substantive item, is a determination of a new application for a premises licence. So because this is a regulatory item, members must be present and have heard the proceedings in their entirety to vote on this item. We will ensure that the applicant and the applicant's representative, if they have one, are present in the meeting. The licensing officer will introduce the report. Members will get the opportunity to ask the licensing officer any questions, and the applicant will also get an opportunity to ask the licensing officer questions. We will have a statement read out on behalf of the objector who cannot be here tonight. The applicant will then be given the opportunity to present their application. We'll ask you to try and limit that to no more than 10 minutes, but if you need more, obviously, we do have that flexibility. Members can ask you questions. We will debate the matter. You'll get a final right of reply. I will read the resolution that we're voting on, and then we will go to the vote. And if any member does need to move, or if we do need to stop for a comfort break or anything like that, then please indicate, and then we can adjourn so that the proceedings are done properly. With that, I would like to invite the licensing officer to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've got an application for a new premises licence by Asda Express, petrol filling station Six Ways. The applicant has requested for a premises licence to permit sale of retail by alcohol every day, midnight to midnight, as well as late night refreshment every day from 11 p.m. till 5 a.m. If approved, the premises licence would be issued. No relevant representations were received from any responsible authorities. However, we did receive one representation from an objector, a local resident, and that is detailed in the report. There are no core hours for petrol filling stations in Cheltenham Borough Council's licensing policy. Included in the report is a similar one for an off-licence. However, members should consider the context of the application and the relevance of core hours provided within the adopted statement. They will need to consider the relevance of the hours within this policy, as there may be significant differences between a typical off-licence and a petrol station with alcohol sales. This could suggest the relevance of the core hours to this application may be less based upon the location and existing business operation. A plan of the location has been included in the premises. A plan of the location of the premises, has been attached as Appendix 2. The committee must determine this application on its individual merits with a view to promoting the licensing objectives, namely the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. The committee must have regard to all of the representations considered as relevant and weight the evidence as it sees fit. After it hears all of the relevant evidence, it will then determine the application. The committee must determine its application having regard to its own licensing policy and must not arbitrarily deviate from its own policy. When it decides to do so, clear and cogent reasons must be provided in support of that decision. The application must be determined on its individual merits, and there is little substantive evidence submitted to show that this application will adversely affect the prevention of public nuisance objective. Members should note environmental health officers have not submitted any representation and would normally be relied on from a technical perspective and on an evidential basis where complaints have been made against a business. In terms of representations generally, the statutory guidance makes clear that in cases where the objection is borderline in terms of its relevance and strength, the benefit of doubt about any aspect of representation should be given to the person making the representation. The comments made by the objector are relevant to the consideration of the promotion of the licensing objectives, but there is little detail to support their assertions, and so members must consider what weight they are to attach to the representation. It should be noted that there has been an attempt to arrange a mediation between objector and applicant. However, the objector did not wish to participate and wished the matter to be heard by members. The hearing regulations made under the Act, 2003 Act, prescribe that an application for a premises licence should be determined within 20 days, working days of the consultation period, where a relevant representation has been submitted. Due to the combination of existing commitments for both the licensing committee, other council committees hosted by the local authority, and the unavailability of the applicant and their representative, it was not possible to hold the hearing within that time. The applicant had offered to defer the hearing date beyond the required 20 working days. Regulations do allow for the authority to extend a time limit in relation to hearings, and the authority has done so in this instance for the above reasons. The authority is reassured that no party in this application is prejudiced by this slight delay in determining the matter. The subcommittee must have regard to the application, the representation received, and the evidence it hears in determining the application. The subcommittee must take such of the following steps as it considers necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives, which can include granting the application as requested, modifying the conditions attached to the licence, or rejecting all or part of the application. And that is the report.
Thank you very much. Are there any member questions for the licensing officer? So I've just got one, which is, can I just confirm that there are some conditions agreed between the police and the applicant in advance of this, and they would form part of the conditions if this is approved?
Yes, I don't have the full list of conditions to hand, but our agreed conditions mostly relating to CCTV, public safety, between the police and the applicant, and they will form part of the licence if consented.
Thank you very much. So to our applicant, Mr. Taylor and Ms. Johnston, Stone, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Right, at this point, we would normally hear from the objector, but the objector is not in attendance, so we're going to ask the Democratic Services Officer to read a statement which I believe has been provided.
Okay, the statement that we've received this afternoon goes as follows. My main concern about Asda's extended licensing hours is that it will increase noise and antisocial behaviour late at night. This is based on the fact that fairly frequently large groups of people do gather on the pavement outside the Asda petrol station late at night, waiting for members of their party to buy things from Asda. They tend to be very loud and often stay for quite a long time, and drinks bought in the Asda are definitely sometimes consumed there. This is much worse on Fridays and Saturdays and during school holidays. It is very difficult to get to sleep if this is going on, and this is despite new double glazing and acoustic treatment on the windows. I'm concerned that if alcohol/late night refreshment sales are going on later, then this kind of disturbance will go on later too. I feel it is likely to also be more frequent as the Asda will become a destination for people making their way home after a night out, as there's nowhere else in the area that will be serving food and drink at this time. At the moment, these disturbances are just about at a manageable level. My expectations of peace and quiet are in line with living on a main road, but I really would not like it to get worse. I also feel that Sixways in general would not benefit from a late night drinking culture, and that it does put young adults at risk who may already have been drinking in town and may go off in different directions to their friends after Sixways, which does seem to mark as a gathering point for groups partying at the end of a night out.
Thank you. Since the objector isn't here, it's a bit difficult to, we obviously can't ask any further questions. So I think I'll put on record that had they been here, I would have asked if they had contacted the police to complain about crime or antisocial behaviour, or to contact Cheltenham Borough Council to complain about noise, antisocial behaviour or litter. But I think that's pretty much a moot point. We can't really ask those questions. So with that, I don't know if there's anything anyone else would like to put on record that they would have asked. Not seeing anything from my committee members. So with that, I will move on to our applicant to give you an opportunity to present your case.
Thank you, Chair. And of course, the one thing that the objector could have done was complain direct to us as the operator. And I can give evidence about this because nobody has complained. I spoke to the manager earlier today, and he's been there 5 years, and nobody has complained direct to the premises about any issues caused by them. I would have asked just that as well. I would have said, well, if there's any problem at all, why haven't you been over to see us? Anyway, I'll deal with the application, if I can, in 3 parts, and I won't take 10 minutes. I'll deal with the applicant, I'll deal with the application and the measures that we take to promote the licensing objectives, and I'll just deal with the relevant issues raised in the representation. The applicant is Eurogarages Limited, and you'll have seen in the press that is now wholly owned by Asda. Asda is a company with over 1,000 stores, over 1,000 licenses, serving millions of customers a week. And then here is the proud boast. Asda has never faced review proceedings under Licensing Act 2003. And that, in my respectful submission, members of the committee, is due to the quality of its policies, its procedures, and its staff training. As far as the application is concerned, yes, it's a licence application for 24 hours. You've seen the premises. It's a little Asda. it's a proper little supermarket. It trades as a convenience store, and it has done so since 1992. It's traded 24 hours. And the first question I ask when we receive residential representations is, has there been any complaints to the premises? Has there been any issues with the responsible authorities that's led to involvement or enforcement proceedings? And what's the situation like in the area? And the answer was no, and it's a main road and a convenience store on a main road with those sorts of issues. Well, you've seen that the premises, it sells groceries, it sells ready meals, household goods, and the application is simply to add to that customer offer the ability for us to sell a bottle of wine or a pack of beers alongside those groceries. And I've said a pack of beers, and I'll come to the range in a moment. The question for the committee that I will ask right at the end is, what difference is it going to make if we put a different product on a shelf at times when we're open anyway, and in a store about which nobody has ever complained? And finally, just coming to late night refreshment, let me put on the record that the application for late night refreshment is limited to the sale of hot drinks only, and we are quite happy for a condition to be imposed to that effect. We're not interested in selling hot food after 11 o'clock. We simply need it because of that coffee machine. Steps to promote the licensing objectives. Well, everything you'd expect from a major operator. Full digital CCTV, full staff training. That training includes Challenge 25, acceptable ID, proxy sales, who you can sell to, who you can't sell to. And then specific to the convenience store estate, spirits and high value products displayed behind the counter, and the range. We don't do miniatures, and the range is especially designed not to appeal to people who want to drink on the street. I don't know if you've been to Institute of Licensing meetings, but there are products that we know that street drinkers look for. High alcohol, high strength beers, super strength beers. We don't do those. We don't do white ciders. We don't do ports, sherries, perry. No half bottles of wine. Everything's possible is done to produce a range that's complementary to our shopping offer, but doesn't, appeal to those that want to drink on the street. We don't split multi-packs. If you want a can of Foster's, you might have to buy 4, 6 or 12. So we don't do single cans other than if there is a particular craft or premium product that's not available as a multi-pack. But of course, those don't appeal to people who want to drink on the streets because they're very, very expensive. So I've mentioned Challenge 25. We do till prompts, and Asda engages the services of independent test purchasers who send 18, 19, 20-year-olds into the shops to ensure that the age verification training is followed. It's a disciplinary offence not to follow that. And you've seen, and we talked about it on the site visit, that sales through the night hatch, no customers admitted between 2200 and 0600, other than members of the emergency services who might want to come in for a coffee, warmth, or whatever that might be. During the course of the application process, we had a chat with Jeremy Sampson, who we've dealt with in respect of all of our Gloucestershire applications, and we had a list of hearings that we'd agreed, a list of conditions we'd agreed elsewhere. Jeremy said, "Are you happy with these here?" And we are, and those are the conditions that you've got. You see, they're just a bit more prescriptive, and just put some meat on the bones of what we'd already offered. But Jeremy's perfectly happy with those. And so to the representation. Again, just to look at the backdrop or the context to that representation. No representation from any of the responsible authorities. Police, perfectly happy to allow Asda to sell alcohol at times it's already open. We've been open and trading 24 hours for 30 years. No complaints. But against that backdrop, we get the representation. And we do what we always do. We offer to meet. Is there anything we can do to allay your concerns? Tell us what your concerns are, and we'll see what we can do. But the local person chose not to take us up, and that's the reason that we're here today. We would have hoped to have been able to mediate this away, but we were unable to do so. His, her, or their concerns are that this will result in noise, antisocial behaviour, and litter. But of course, those aren't concerns about which there's any evidence, or indeed are shared by the responsible authorities. And what I can say is those are not concerns borne out at any of our other petrol filling station premises. We've got 365. 365. One for every day of the year. There you go. And so members of the committee, those are the submissions on behalf of Asda. Thank you. Technically, Eurogarages, but.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the applicant from members? Yep, councillor Joy.
Thank you so much for coming today and, just being present for this. I did attend the site visit, so it was actually quite informative to be able to see that. I'm pretty sure that you're going to be, it kind of felt like it's really good that you considered the product offering, just ensuring that that's something that kind of discourages, like the, potentially problematic behaviours. But presumably you're going to be staying in close contact with your workers if they have any particular feedback. You're going to be taking that into consideration if they run into any problems following this change being introduced.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our workers are our greatest asset. Our colleagues are our greatest asset, and their safety, their security is the most important thing to us. So we would never do anything to jeopardise that. As far as feedback from the store is concerned, there is a very definite chain where concerns or suggestions can be escalated. And we do, and we have stores where certain products aren't sold for just that reason, that they were felt to be problem products in that particular area. So yeah, we can always adapt those sorts of things, and we will do so.
So you'd say that generally you actually you've had incidences like this before, and you've been able to find corrective measures as well. You have like a really robust existing process of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of particular premises in cumulative impact areas where the police have come to us and said, that particular product is an issue. And we say, right, we'll take it off. It really is as simple as that. It often comes from the authorities, and we work hard with the authorities, and in partnership with them, because that's what it's all about. We want a business that's a benefit to the community rather than a burden upon it.
Councillor Sankey.
Thank you. It sort of links really with what Councillor Joy was saying. How many members of staff do you plan to have on shift at any one time?
Well, I mean, the answer. Go on.
Yeah, so within this particular premises, due to the size, we would normally have a manager or section leader on alongside another colleague, sort of during the core hours of the day. Overnight, it is single-manned a lot of the time, and that is why we utilise the night hatch at those times in order to protect our colleagues.
And you've seen the condition that we've agreed with the police, where if there is only one member of staff on duty, the doors will be closed, and yeah, it will be operated through the night hatch between 2,300 and 5,500. Actually, I mean, it's usually between 22 and 6, but we've got that little bit of wriggle room just in case.
Thank you.
So in the conversations that you've gone through, you've already gone through quite a few of the questions that I had. So you've gone through what the nature of the late night refreshment is. I can see that there are litter bins on site. You've gone through the fact that you don't intend to sell super strength beer, lagers, single cans, other things that would attract problem drinkers. You've talked about whether it would be service hatch or open 24/7, so that's covered. You've shown us on the site visit the restricted area that it was planned to sell alcohol from, and that is within sight of the sales counter as well. The police have covered the CCTV in their condition, so effectively you've covered quite a bit about the potential for problem drinkers. So I won't repeat those questions. I just want to put it on record that I'd gone through the paperwork and thought of those things. So the one question I've got, which wasn't there, so you're obviously in a residential area, working through the night, and in the application form that we've got, the prevention of public nuisance section was actually blank. That might have been a cause of concern, and I guess from my view from turning up there is that it would be beneficial to have notices, and I think the previous Google Street View suggests there were previously notices on the exits, but it might be better at the night hatch just saying, this is a residential area, please respect our neighbours. So I would be minded to suggest that we conditioned that, but would that be something that would be acceptable? And going forward, it might be worth thinking in residential areas about leaving that blank might cause people concern.
Lucy?
Yes, that's not a problem at all. We're happy to accept a condition to that effect.
And just the reason that that is blank. I mean, interestingly, this is number 350 something of 350 odd applications that we're making. The reason we left that blank was, of course, what you're required to put in those additional steps. And what we felt was that there was nothing further required to prevent public nuisance from a store that's been open without problem for 30 odd years. But I very much take the point, and you've heard Lucy confirm that she's got no difficulty with that condition.
So the other two questions that I've got, one is just a sort of indicative. Most of the time, Cheltenham is obviously a reasonably quiet Cotswold town, a large town, but enough to sustain 24-hour shops, but not a huge amount. But during race week, it does slightly change. Do you have any? Have you given consideration to how you'll manage the 24 hours opening during race week? And is there anything you do different just to make sure that isn't likely to cause nuisance at that time?
The answer to the question is yes, of course we think about that. We have other stores in Cheltenham, we have other stores close by. What we tend to do is either what we've done before or we take on board whatever the police are suggesting we do. But yes, I mean, Cheltenham is great. Everybody loves March. But yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. Of course, we have to adapt, and we continually risk assess, and then operate in accordance with what that risk assessment requires. It's not very good English, is it?
I think it's just reassuring that obviously you're aware that's the main thing. And the final question, which I guess is just something that occurs to me. Obviously, it's a petrol station, so predominantly a lot of people will drive there. What's the protocol if someone who appears to be intoxicated drives to the premises and then tries to purchase more alcohol? One assumes that they would be refused, but do you have a protocol to phone the police, or how does that work?
Well, they absolutely are refused, and thereafter, it's a matter for the staff on site to implement the training. We do have ANPR, and it's very, very clear. The training is, anybody who appears to be intoxicated, isn't served. It's as simple as that. The question I thought you were going to ask is about drink driving.
That was exactly it. If they've driven there, it's the drink driving question.
Yes. I mean, what I would say is we've sat through a number of these hearings where people have said you shouldn't be selling alcohol because you're a drive-to venue. And the answer to that is, well, so is every supermarket and most pubs and restaurants. And there is absolutely no evidence to support the assertion that people walk out and open their purchases in the car park. But yes, I mean, if somebody is unfit through drink and tries to buy alcohol, well, A, they wouldn't be served, and B, the police would be alerted. It's as simple as that.
Brilliant, thank you. Are there any further questions from my committee members? Okay, so before I open this up to debate, I will remind members that it's important that you give due regard to the council's licensing policy, and if you deviate from that policy, you give clear reasons for doing so. It's important that you only take into account material licensing considerations and that your decisions are reasonable, proportionate and rational. I think I'm happy to start. I am content with what we've heard, the conditions that we've been offered, with the exception of adding a condition that a notice should be displayed saying it's a residential area and at the point of sale, the night hatch, displayed on the night hatch saying it's a residential area, and to give due regard to members of the public. I believe there is there is a condition from our model pool that can be, that's worded in that way, which will save me trying to rewrite it if I can find it.
Sorry, I was just looking at the extract from Home Office guidance issued under S182 Licensing Act 2003 in December, where item 2.27, beyond the immediate area surrounding premises, is matters for the personal responsibility of individuals under the law. So an individual who engages in antisocial behaviour is accountable in their own right. However, it would be perfectly reasonable for a licensing authority to impose a condition following relevant representations, which I think you've made. It requires a licence holder or club to place signs at the exits from the building, encouraging patrons to be quiet until they leave the area. Does that sound what you were kind of driving at?
I think that's exactly it. There is something in our licensing policy which I'm just struggling to find on the multiple web pages that will be the exact text. But I think we're probably happy. So that's my view on it. I think that's all it's reasonable to do. The applicant has said that they are going to do quite a few things in terms of preventing problem drinking, but I don't think we need to condition those. The applicant has said that they will do those, and if they do attract problem drinkers, I think it would become obvious, and they'd lose their no review record. So I suspect the applicant is minded to do the right thing anyway. So it seems overkill and disproportionate to condition that. But I wonder, so is there anything else that either of you would like to add?
Just to say, yeah, it's very comprehensive. Thank you very much. And also, it is reassuring to know you've considered the races and you'll risk assess that appropriately. So, but yeah, I'm happy with everything else. Thank you.
Councillor Joy?
So yeah, I would also like to say thanks, because this was a really good application. Well, you'd obviously considered a lot of bases, and I think just the unique profile of the area as well. I know it's quite demanding to have to assess every single site that you're making applications for, but I just I'm also quite mindful of the fact that since you have like a national reputation to protect, you've obviously kind of channeled a lot of resources into ensuring that that reputation remains, like, you know, very well considered by the communities that you're operating in. So I would definitely agree with the committee that this is a really good application. It's a strong application. And I think that you've kind of considered like the potential worst case scenarios and put mitigating circumstances in place. I'd say I'm quite confident that you're going to be managing everything within your capacity to reasonably address any concerns that have been raised. So I'm quite happy with that.
So I've now got the model condition, which just reads as follows, and I'll modify it to what it says. But it's prominent, clear notices shall be displayed at, and if we have the night counter, is that the right word? The night hatch, requesting customers to respect the needs of local residents and leave the premises and the area quietly. And I think that's the only thing that I think it would be reasonable and proportionate for us to add as an extra condition, save those agreed with the police and the mandatory conditions that would already be on the licence. Are there any more comments from members? Okay. In which case, say again? Okay. I need to give the applicant the final right of reply. So is there anything else you would like to add at this point?
No, thank you.
Okay, so now we need to move. I just need to find the exact item that we are voting on. Bear with me for a second. So it's going to be 7.4 which is the subcommittee. Let's have regard where we're going. So we have the proposal is that we vote to approve, but with the modified condition as read out previously. Is that clear to everybody? So we will grant the application with with the addition of the extra condition of the display of notices, or a notice to ask people to leave the area quietly. So we now need to take an electronic vote on that. If it's not working, shall we have a show of hands? Oh, is it working? Okay, so going back to that, so those in favour, please indicate. Okay, so that's unanimous. So the licence has been granted with the addition of that one extra condition about the display of the notices. The licensing team will be in contact with you in due course. Since the objector isn't here, I will just say that ultimately the applicant has said if there are issues, please contact them directly. I don't know where the objector lives. I imagine that there is a phone number prominently on display or that can be found online. The objector also obviously has the option to contact either the Borough Council or Gloucestershire Police about antisocial behaviour, which is either authority, crime and disorder, which is the police, noise, which would be the Borough Council, and litter, which is more for the Borough Council to clear up because it would be very difficult to reduce responsibility. All I can say to the objector is the applicant appears open to trying to work with you if you are watching. So I'll close that item. Briefing notes, there are none. Any other items the chairman determines are urgent and which require a decision? There are none. Just before we close the meeting, we will make sure that it is safe for you to leave by an appropriate exit in case there is any violent disorder outside. So please bear with us. To members of the public watching, thank you. The meeting is closed at